This is a presentation of BSRN, Box Studios Radio Network. The Power Play Post Show is on the air, covering minor league hockey since 2003, and now covering the Binghamton Black Bears with news, reactions, and in-depth interviews only heard here. And now from the Box Studios in Kirkwood, New York, here is your host of the Power Play Post Show, Bob Howard.
And hello, everybody. Welcome to another edition of the Power Play Post Show. This is the show for April 21st, 2024. This is season 13, episode number 40 of the Power Play Post Show, episode number 425 in the long-running podcast that is the Power Play Post Show. I am your host, Bob Howard. Welcome to the show. And the stage is set. Yes. We will see Trevor Babin here in Binghamton, New York on Saturday at 7 p.m. for Game 2 of the Empire Division semifinals. Actually, I guess it's the Empire Division finals, but it's the Commissioner Cup semifinals as they crown the East Division champions in the playoffs because Motor City has knocked off the Danbury Hat 2-1 in the 3-game series. The game is now over in Motor City, just under 700 people in attendance, and they beat the Danbury Hat 4-1 to take that series, and that is our second round matchup. Motor City Rockers on Friday night at 7:35 p.m. There will be no travel day. They will be playing that game, and both teams will be making their way to Binghamton, New York for a Saturday night contest. I am a little surprised, and from what I heard, there were things in the works, and apparently all 4 teams that played today had asked for a travel day, and it was not granted by the league. So, very interesting information there. And I got to be honest, this is the tale of what do you really want? What's the lesser of two evils? Do you want Motor City and Trevor Babin, or do you want the Danbury Hat Tricks? Or is it fortunate that we won't have the Danbury Hat Tricks? Now, I think Danbury is a lot more beatable this year, right? Obviously, 12 wins and 18 meetings in the regular season against the Danbury Hat Tricks. So maybe, Danbury would have been the better team to face against, but, I think the Black Bears this season have overcome tougher challenges than Trevor Babin. And I think, though, as good as he is, there is going to be a game plan going into Friday night's game to crack that armor, so to speak, of Trevor Babin. Now, we'll talk more about the series, the 5-game series that the Black Bears played against them, because we didn't see Trevor Babin in all 5 games, right? So we'll break that down. Which games did we play against Trevor Babin? I know that 2 of them that we didn't win, but we won 3 games against the team, and I believe Trevor played in 1 of them. But we'll break that down on Thursday's podcast, getting you ready for Game 1, which will be on Friday at 7:35. The official schedule will probably be out in a couple hours, if not an hour or so, on the Federal Prospects Hockey League's website. So very interesting. I did watch the whole game, and I do believe that Motor City played a sound game against them defensively. There were a ton of penalties in this game. 16, let's see here, 8 penalties for the Motor City Rockers for 16, and 10 for 30 for the Danbury Hat Tricks, as Colby Johnson got into it a little bit at the end of the game. He had to be restrained and held back and everything. But sometimes that happens when you're down to your last couple minutes and everything. It is technically a final now, and it's so very interesting that we're going to be playing against the Motor City Rockers, traveling out there. My guess is the Black Bears will travel out on Thursday, spend the night, play, and then travel back after the game. Hopefully some of the players can get some sleep on the bus. Everybody knows that is so not possible, so not good. I don't know if Andreas will go and do a flight out there. I don't know if the cost, can be overcome maybe to, fly out everybody out there, you could probably send because if you fly back, depending on when you catch the flight and how that works, maybe you fly into Syracuse, you get home, and you're home by 3:00 in the morning, and then you're sleeping a good 6 to 8 hours before you have to get to the rink. That's probably not a bad idea. I don't think Motor City would be able to do that. I just don't think the team has the finances to be able to fly players in and out. So it'll be interesting to see what happens there. But let's get the show going because we've got a Watertown series that we need to go over and talk about. The Power Play Post Show is on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Pocket Casts, Amazon Music, and iHeartRadio. Just search for Power Play Post Show on whichever platform you listen to your podcast and subscribe. Please join the Power Play Post Show Facebook group. Just go to Facebook and search for the Power Play Post Show. Check out binghamtonhockey.net for all your Binghamton hockey information and curiosity. And so here it is. So the Black Bears sweep the Watertown Wolves in 2 games, winning games 1 4-2 and game 2 7-2. And again, there's a little bit of a theme here with the Binghamton Black Bears, and I ran some numbers. I'm going to talk about those numbers a little bit on Thursday's show. Okay, now Thursday's show is shaping up to probably have a few guests. Probably be talking to 2 or 3 people to get you guys ready for this upcoming series against the Motor City Rockers. I like the fact that there's only 5 games to kind of really break down, but because there's only 5 regular season games against the Motor City Rockers, and but we'll talk about all that. But come from behind, and what I would consider a dominating win. Right, we'll call it that at this point, because that's what the Black Bears did this past weekend. A 4-2 win on Friday night, and basically it started off Watertown. It came up in Watertown's favor in the first period. They won that first period without a doubt. Trevor Lord scored 4:48 into the first period, and then just under 10 minutes later, Michael Mercurio. He scores. Now he seems like he can score against the Black Bears and everything. I don't know. Maybe he plays with a little bit more vigor because he was the property of the Black Bears at one point and it isn't now. But at the 14-15 mark, he made it a 2-0 game. And you started to think in the back of your brain, okay, they're up in Watertown. They lost 3 times up in Watertown. Is it going to be a little bit of a repeat of what's already happened up in Watertown? Right, and you have to have that in the back of your mind a little bit, right? I know that Brooks sometimes kind of gets on the fans for getting down, but you know what? That's the best part of hockey and being a fan in sports is you can really kind of vent your frustrations about your team, and it's okay to do so. I believe in freedom of speech 100%. I believe that you should be able to say what you want. As long as you're not harming other people with your speech, it's okay, right? So I have no problems with people getting a little down on the team, maybe criticizing the team a little bit, because that is part of sports. All people do that in sports. If you're a hockey player and you watch football, you probably curse out your team a little bit. You might not do it to other hockey players because you play in that position and you kind of understand it, but you probably do it for football and basketball games and baseball games, cursing like, how could they play that or how could they do that? So I have no problem with the fans getting on people. But Brooks likes to bring up, like, listen, don't get too down on the team and the players because they come back and they find a way. They continue to find a way. And I find it interesting that in the games that they played this year, they have like 17 come from behind wins. So in other words, another team gets up and they come back and they find a way to win. And, there was a 3-goal game where they came back and won against Elmira, where Elmira was up 4-1, and then they came marching back. So this team does that. And that's what they did on Friday night in Watertown. And I think it kind of shocked Watertown a little bit as well that this happened. Kyle Stefan, who I think has had probably the best 18, 19 games for a player for the Binghamton Black Bears, at least in the top 3 of the best 17, 18 games. He started off a little slow maybe, but he's really picked it up, and I just think he's had a really good run so far, and I hope he resigns. And if he's going to play next year, I definitely hope it's here because I think he'll be either the second line center or the top line center, depending on how the roster shakes out after the offseason. 2:57, so 43 seconds later, Colin Fitzgerald, he scores, and he seems to chip in here and there. It's really kind of nice. I think he's going to probably score more in just this small sample size of this season for the Black Bears than he has in his career. But he ties it up and makes it 2-2. And we do this in 43 seconds, and this is exactly what the Black Bears do. They score quickly, close to each other, right? And they just kind of feed off of that momentum, right? So in 2 shifts, they score 2 goals. It's that simple. And it's a tie game. And then I think from that point on, it was never Watertown's game after that. It just wasn't. And you could say otherwise because they're home and they had the home fans, and it was a sellout crowd, and it was nice to see that arena sold out and just completely packed and everything, even though it's small and 1,500 is 1,500. But when something big happened, they were pretty loud. I'll give it that. And, Jeff Barrett, he definitely, he can really kind of, as you're listening to his broadcast, and I actually went back and watched a little bit afterwards. The first period I watched because I wanted to hear the crowd and Jeff Barrett and how that went and everything. Brooks Hill did a great broadcast with Cole Parenti in the studio. Well, actually at the Visions Veterans Memorial Arena. Someday I'll stop saying Broome County Veteran Memorial Arena, but they did a great broadcast. But it was 2-2, and the rest of the second period didn't really matter. It was back and forth a little bit. Binghamton picked it up and kind of dominated. There were some penalties. And then in the third period, 1:40 into the fourth period, after a penalty that was assessed at the end. So this is where Watertown started to shoot themselves in the foot, right? And you can't blame anybody but Justin Schmidt for the power play goal that Dakota Bond scored. So at the end of the 20-minute mark, Justin Schmidt was unhappy about something, and so he took it upon himself to kind of go after and started throwing punches at people. And then Matthew Ballard said, okay, enough of this. They dropped the gloves. They had a fight. And Justin Schmidt gets the extra 10 minutes. He gets the extra 2 minutes for instigating. And that 2 minutes led to Dakota Bond scoring the power play goal. And that's the game winner, right? And it just put Watertown out of this game. Tate Leeson didn't help his situation any. Tate Leeson and Dustin Gesso, it was compared to me recently, or actually earlier today, these two players were compared to each other where there's some skill, but they get into their own heads. And, Tate Leeson had 8 penalty minutes in this game 4 different times. 3 of those ended up being matching minors, when 2 of those would have been a power play for the Watertown Wolves. He just got in his own way too much. Gavin Yates ended the scoring in the game at the 10:34 mark of the third period. And again, it was just Binghamton after that. It just really was. And it was a 4-2 win for the Binghamton Black Bears on Friday night in the Watertown Municipal Arena. Connor McAnanama got the win. He got the start. Obviously, 28 shots against, 26 saves, a .925 save percentage. Played in all 60 minutes, so it's a 2.00 goals against average. He played really well. Lots of penalty minutes in this game. Binghamton, 12 penalties for 27, and for Watertown, 13 for 37 minutes. Tate Leeson with 4-minute minors for 8 minutes. Seemed to hurt his team more than help. Ugly moment with Connor Smith where he kind of swung his stick around. Justin Smith fight with Bollard at the end of the second period led to a suspension for 1 game. Okay, and anybody that's like saying, "Oh, I can't believe he got suspended for an instigator," he didn't get suspended for an instigator. You guys are forgetting for a second that it was an instigator at the end of a period when the play was not happening. He didn't fight when it was 1959 or 1958. I mean, these are rules that have been around for a very long time. So just understand that Justin Schmidt he didn't get a suspension for a fight. He got suspension for not fighting within the time constraints of a game. So outside of the period. So 20 minutes. So if you're saying it's okay to get in that fight and not get suspended for it, then guys can literally go down the tunnel, find each other, fight, and we'll just give them 5 minutes because this is hockey. Now, that's not how that works. It was an appropriate suspension for Justin Smith. There's nothing wrong with the guy. Nice guy. I've heard nothing but great things about him, but it was a dumb move on his part to do that then. And Bullard didn't get that because Bullard was basically defending himself and his teammates and whatnot. Just like supposedly Tate Leeson was doing when he went after Connor Smith after Connor Smith boarded one of the Watertown Wolves. It was a retaliation, and they felt that that it was okay. Apparently the league felt that was okay. I'm not saying that it's right. I'm not saying that it's good. All right. So then the Binghamton Black Bears won the game. Then there was the Saturday game in Binghamton. Okay. This game started different, right? And it just played out differently than the first game. The first game, Watertown was in it for the first 22, 23 minutes, and then it kind of like dissolved from there. Watertown was never in this game. And this is the difference between Binghamton and the first game and Binghamton and the second game. They are able to win in different ways, right? In the first game, they came back from behind and won the game, just like they did at the end of the regular season against Elmira and against Danbury the night before that. They came from behind. They find that way. But then when they get rolling, when they're comfortable in their own space, in their own rink, with the bigger rink size, what do? They start off the scoring. 4:30 mark, Connor Smith gets the first goal. Now, if there's anything you can say about hockey is that sometimes revenge is best served by scoring a goal, right? If you think about it that way. And that's what Connor Smith did. Yeah, sure, Tate Leeson's on the ice, and he's still trying to start trouble and get the Black Bears. They're trying to goad the Black Bears, and that's what Watertown tried to do. And the Black Bears bit a little bit, to the point where it didn't really hurt them as much. But they basically set the example that, hey, yeah, you can goad us, and we'll push you back, and we'll get a matching minor, and that's okay. Because it's not hurting us, it's hurting you more than it's hurting us. And that's just the way it was. 6:32 mark, so 2 minutes and 2 seconds later, 2-2. Shorthanded goal from Dakota Bond, which, why not, of course. Dakota Bond's been good all year on special teams. He's become a special teams specialist, in my opinion, whether it be on the penalty kill or on the power play. He's been very good. Watertown got on the board at the 7:21 mark with a Ross Bartlett, who was also pissed off. I think he literally was just angry the whole game, even after scoring the goal. Binghamton then got a power play goal from Donald Oliveri, the godfather of Binghamton. Power play goal. That made it 3-1, and then to end the basically the end of the first period at the 18:44 mark, Connor Smith gets his second goal of the game, and just at that point, it was just this game was already over, and it was only the first period. In 20 minutes, they were done. Jesse Anderson scored in the second period, 2:38 mark, 13:33 mark. That's when Watertown got their second goal from Tate Leeson. Again, I will say this, and I've said it before, and you'll hear me say it again. Tate Leeson's a good player. He's a great skater. He's got a great shot, and he just doesn't know how to get his head out of his ass. I'm sorry. There's three aspects of hockey I'm going to tell you right now. You got to have skill, you got to have hockey IQ, and you got to have the mental fortitude. And what he doesn't have is the mental fortitude. He keeps breaking down during games, and it's costing his team. He might be the captain, and Verbeek might like the way he plays the game, but Verbeek isn't no hockey mastermind either. I hate to say it. They're the two things hurting Watertown the most this regular season, or the regular season and in the playoffs. Those two, Verbeek and Tate Leeson. Dakota Seaman didn't do them any favors either. I mean, I don't know how many times he was suspended. But when you look at his numbers, he didn't play in as many games. So Watertown basically just kept biting themselves in the foot, okay? Or in the ass, whatever you want to call it. 17:52 of the second period, Gavin Yates got his second goal of the weekend. And then on the power play, Donald Oliveri gets another power play goal. And when you look at it, Donald Oliveri He's just so good on the power play. But there's another aspect to his game that probably doesn't show up on the score sheet, but is so very important. He antagonizes the other team to no end and barely gets called on penalties for it. And that's key, right? You can antagonize people like Tate Leeson's trying to do, but when you get to the point where you get frustrated and you do something stupid, Donald Everett doesn't do that. And he does this with a smile on his face, which I think softens the whole thing for the other team and even for the referees, linesmen. They just don't want to call anything on him because he's smiling the whole time. And even when he sat down in the box on Saturday night, he is just blowing kisses to people. The guy is having so much fun playing the game of hockey in what could be his final season playing professional hockey. He's talked about it here on the Power Play Post Show that this might be it for him. So that was pretty much the game, right? Connor Smith gets 2 goals. Donald Oliveri gets 2 goals. Did anybody else get 2 goals? I don't think so. Gavin Eads has 2 between the weekend. Jesse Anderson got his first goal of the playoffs, which is very important. Now, what's interesting is that Tyson Kirkby did not score this weekend. And there's nothing wrong with that. He had 4 assists. Very important part of the Binghamton Black Bears. So that's okay. That's okay. We'll talk about that in just a few minutes. So even more penalties in this game. Watertown had 15 infractions for 76 minutes, and Binghamton had 12 for 51 minutes. They only tagged Binghamton for 11 and 49, but Austin Thompson had a penalty at the end of the game along with Tate Leeson. So I added it into the BinghamtonHockey.net score sheet because that I know it's correct. It's not correct on the website, but unfortunately we can't control what they do or don't do in some of these smaller rinks where they can barely hire someone to come in and do this properly. I get it. The referees are rattling off stuff to you, but you still got to get it right. And nobody went back and checked it. And that's one of the things that I hope the league changes into the future, right? There is supposed to be a check of the penalties and what's called. Austin Thompson was clearly sitting in the box in the last 15 seconds of the game, and no penalties attached to him. And, so Connor Smith with 2 even strength goals, Donald Oliveri with 2 power play goals. The Black Bears scored a shorthanded goal and was perfect shorthanded in 7 shorthanded moments this weekend. So special teams still good. 3 power play goals, a shorthanded goal, and they were perfect on the penalty kill, right? So Black Bears, that's what they need to do going forward, okay? So let's look at the first round stats. Gavin Eads had 2 goals, 3 assists for 5 points. Again, I told you he is important for the playoffs. Everybody's going to talk about maybe Tyson Kirkby not scoring a goal. They might talk about some of the other guys that maybe didn't score a goal or get on the score sheet. But Gavin Yates and Tyson Kirkby did everything that they needed to do to get Binghamton through the first round. Gavin has 5 points. Tyson Kirkby has 4 assists. Connor Smith scored 2 goals and had an assist. Colin Fitzgerald coming back from the ESB, third-year pro now, 2 goals, 1 assist 1 goal, 2 assists for 3 points. I'm reading the wrong column. I do apologize. Dakota Bond, 2 goals, no assists. Donald Oliveri, 2 goals. Jesse Anderson had a goal, and Kyle Stefan had a goal. That's all your guys that scored against them, and that's fine. Now, against Motor City, I think it's going to be spread out even a little bit more. If we do more than 2 games, we'll see. Binghamton will face off. Now, Connor McAnanama had 2 wins. Let me finish this up. Connor had 2 wins, 59 shot attempts, only gave up 4 goals, 55 saves, 2.00 goals against average, very nice, and a save percentage of .932. And, of course, he'll probably more than likely be facing off against Trevor Babin in the second round. Binghamton to face off against the Motor City Rockers in the second round of the playoffs. Motor City and Danbury went to 3 games where the Rockers and Trevor Babin limited the hat tricks to just 1 goal in Game 3, which is pretty crazy if you think about it. Binghamton won the regular series against Motor City 3-2. Binghamton won all games at home and just took 1 game in Motor City. Now, let's go over that real quick here. We'll talk about this more, obviously, on Thursday's show. But when I look at the regular season, against Motor City. The first two games were in Binghamton. On January 6th, Binghamton won that game 8-1. On February 2nd, they won the game 6-3. Now, Binghamton then went to Motor City on February 9th and 10th. Now, on February 9th, they won in Motor City 7-5. So they won the first three games in the series. They were 3-0 in the 5-game series. Boom, boom, boom. Okay? But then on February 10th, I believe that was the first game in Motor City that Trevor Babin played. That was a 3-1 win because he was suspended for like a week before. He got like 3 or 4 games, and it ended up he was suspended on the 9th, came back on the 10th. They won that game 3-1. Okay, very similar to a game that we just watched between Danbury and Motor City. And then I believe he was suspended again for the March 30th game, but we'll check that and have those numbers correct for the Thursday podcast. But Motor City won that game, kind of like in a shootout a little bit, high-scoring game, 6-4. So Binghamton wins the first 3. Motor City wins the last 2. Now, if you mix all those up and it's a 5-game series, Binghamton wins and moves on. But this is a different time period, right? You're playing in the playoffs. We all know it's completely different, okay? So the first game will be played Friday night at 7:35 p.m. No travel day for the teams. Game 2 will be at Binghamton at 7 p.m. I'm going to guess if there is a Game 3, it'll be at 6 o'clock in Binghamton at the Visions Veterans Memorial Arena. Okay, so that's it. That's all I've got. Watertown cleared them. Sweep. 2 games. 4-2 win up in Watertown, and then a 7-2 win. Now, this week we will have some interviews that we're going to be doing. We'll get you prepared. We'll announce some of that stuff as we can 100% confirm these. But we should have a lot of stuff up on the Facebook group, and you can always tune in on Thursday. There is one message, one Facebook. And now I got to find it, and I should have had this pulled up beforehand. But I did do, let's talk about this real quick. I did do a Power Play post-show poll, and I do want to bring this up because I think this is very important. Let's see here. Where is the poll? Oh, there's the poll. Who do you want to see in the second round? So let's get a poll going and see how many votes we can get from everyone. Who do you want to see in the second round of the playoffs? I mentioned Motor City or Danbury, and we got 97 votes. Okay, so let's talk about this. So in the first category, which is either team, I don't really care. There were 18 votes for that, okay? There were 21 votes for Motor City and 58 votes for the Danbury Hat Tricks. So a lot of people really wanted to see the team play against the Danbury Hat Tricks. You're not going to get that satisfaction of potentially beating them in the second round, unfortunately. So that's unfortunately the way that is. But it was very interesting how many people wanted Motor City. Now, personally, myself, I think I don't want to see Binghamton play against Trevor Babin. It's a bigger challenge. I really think that Danbury would have been the easier beat, but unfortunately we don't have control of that because of the play and everything. So there were some interesting comments here, and I really wanted to... Okay, yeah, so this is a very interesting comment, and I think this was actually on my day after game report for the sweep is not enough, more work to do. Okay, Matthew Cole writes this. You mentioned Bollard putting the team first and not taking rash penalties. I agree. And I would add that the amount of team first play is the extra gear that they have been finding for all these comeback wins. Every time you see someone go down to block a shot, every time you see someone jump in when the teammate takes a dirty hit, every goal celebration where they point to a teammate who took a hit to deliver the perfect pass instead of soaking up the glory from the crowd, I honestly can't remember ever seeing this level of unity in any recent Binghamton team, save that sudden December turnaround that the Devils had in the pandemic shortened season. They are built for something special. Matthew, I can't disagree. Thank you very much for that comment. I totally agree. It's the reason why I wanted to read this one off to everybody. I totally agree with that. And it's been team first. It's been team defense. Quote from Coach Sherwood was just a solid series overall. A lot of contributions across the board. We'll celebrate a little bit and then gear up for the next opponent tomorrow. And so obviously they are going to be facing off against the Motor City Rockers. I wanted to read that comment because I thought it was a very important one. It looks like coming also out of the Danbury series. Now, we talked about Kyle Powell possibly retiring, and we're hoping to get him on the show, hopefully within the next week. But it also looks like Johnny Ruiz is retiring. So you heard it here first. You might hear it from somewhere else before you listen to the show. But it looks like Johnny Ruiz, basically what I feel has been the important cog to the important cog to the Danbury Hat Tricks. It looks like he is retiring. Looks like he is done. So very interesting there. But either way, folks, that's it for this week's this Sunday weekend wrap-up show. Thank you very much for listening. Let me read the must-reads, and then we will get out of here. The Power Play Post Show is on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Pocket Cast, Amazon Music, and iHeartRadio. Just search Power Play Post Show on whichever platform you listen to your podcast and subscribe. Please join the Power Play Post Show Facebook group and go over to Facebook and just search Power Play Post Show and subscribe. Check out binghamtonhockey.net for all your Binghamton hockey information. And like I said, we got a few guests that we have planned coming up this Thursday on the Power Play Post Show. Thanks for listening, everybody. I am Bob Howard, and we'll talk to you next time right here on the Power Play Post Show.
Thanks for listening to this edition of the Power Play Post Show. Be sure to tune in next week to the Box Studios Radio Network for all the latest Black Bears news and interviews from around minor league hockey. The Power Play Post Show would like to thank John Patitucci for all the music you hear on the show. You've been listening to the Power Play Post Show.